In this video, you are going to understand about some basics of reflection API, and then I will show you how to create your own proxies using JDK. Let us get started. First, let us see reflection API. Now, I have written a class called as A. It has a variable called as name, two constructors, and a method called as do something. I will make this as public, and setters and getters for name. Now, if I ask you, can you tell me the metadata of this class? What will you say? You will just say that the class name is A, it is public, it has a variable name, it has two constructors, these methods, setters and getters. So every class has metadata. Now what I want to do is I want to read the metadata present in the .class file by using the API. So if you want to read the metadata of a class in Java, there's a class called as class. So by using that class object, you can read metadata of a class. Similarly, if I ask you to talk about the metadata of this method, you'll say the method name is do something, it is taking string, returning string, it is public. These are metadata, right? So every method also has metadata. The metadata of a method is present inside the .class file. And if you want to read the metadata of a method in Java, there's a class called as method. By using method object, you can read the metadata of a method. Similarly, field has metadata, constructor has metadata. So if you want to read metadata of a field, there's a class called as field. By using field object, you can read metadata of a field. If you want to read the metadata of a constructor, there's a constructor class. So by using constructor object, you can retrieve metadata of a constructor. So let me show you firstly step by step. Now I just remove all this. I have class A and A dot. If I see, I'm seeing a static variable called as class of type class. Did I declare any static variable of type class in here? No, right? The compiler will write the static variable whenever it is writing a .class file. So every class, every compiled class will have a static variable called as class of type class. So I'll take it in a variable class C is a constant. Now this class variable is pointing to class object of class A. Now by using this class object, I can read the metadata of the class. So I can say c dot get methods. See, this is returning a method array. So I'll take it in a method array. Method present in which package? java.lang.reflect package. So method array, right? This is a method array. Methods is equals to. So what is this method class? There's a class called as method by using which you can read the metadata of a method. So what I'll do is I'll iterate over each method. For each method, I want to get the metadata. I want to print the name. So I'll say system.out.println method dot. See, by using method object, I can retrieve the metadata. Method dot get name will give me the method name. Get modifiers will give you the modifiers. Return type, parameter type, declaring class, parameter count. These are all the methods by using which I can read metadata of a method. Right now I am interested only in the method name. So let me run. Yep, see, I'm seeing all the methods. Hey, where are these methods from? Wait, equals, notify and all. These are actually inherited methods from the superclass object. If I don't want the inherited methods, so what I can do is instead of saying get methods, I can say get declared methods. Get methods will give all the methods whether it is inherited or not, but get declared methods will give you the declared methods in the current class. So now let me check. Yep, see, I is printing only the declared methods. Okay, now you understood how to read the methods. Okay, then I want to actually get a method object for a particular method called as do something. The method name I know is do something. It is taking string and returning string. So if you want a one method object, so I can say c dot get method, and the first argument is a method name do something, and do something is taking what all parameter types. See here, parameter types is dot 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 var args, so I can pass n number of parameter types. My method is taking only one parameter string, so I'll pass string dot class. Okay, this gives me a method object for do something. Method is equals to, okay, what is this? All are giving warning, so I'll give it is actually generic class, so class of a, right? Now the warnings are gone. Now I got the method object. This is how we can get. So I'll just print system.out.println method dot get return type. It will give me the class object. Get return type dot again dot get name. What is the return type get name? Type name. So let's see. It is string, is it? So this is how we can access the return type. Okay. Now what I want to do is one more thing. I want to create an object of class A using default constructor, but without using new. How I can achieve? I can say c dot new instance. C dot new instance will give create an object and give it. So I know it's an object of A. So see, c dot new instance is returning an object of class A. This is how you can invoke. You can create an object without using new operator. Now I have an object. Let us see whether the constructor will be called. If the default constructor is called, I should see this printed. Okay. Is it printing? Yes. Okay. So now I have an object. I want to invoke do something method on this object. Now what I can do is, normally what we do a dot, I'll call it do something. This is the way I call it, right? Normally. But I don't want to call like this. I want to you call dynamically. I don't know which method to call. Assume that the method name which to be called is passed through the main to the command line argument. I know the method name. So what I can do, I can get the corresponding method object for the method name. Assume that I am getting it from the command line. I'll just give args of 0. Assume that I'm getting the method argument from command line. So I want dynamically invoke a method. I don't know which method. The method name will come through command line argument. So I got a method object. Now what I can do, I want to invoke that method on this object. So what method dot, can I invoke a do something method on a class? Is it static method? No, non-static method, right? Non-static methods have to be invoked on some objects only. So if you want to invoke, what I can do, method dot invoke on which object? I have here a, and what are the arguments to be passed? That method takes string, so I'll pass my name Siva. And if I pass Siva, what is this do something returning hello, and it will return Siva. So I'll take the return value object return value is equals to, right? Then now let me check. I'll just print return value. Okay. So now let me run. I didn't pass arg0, is it? I'll pass arg0 as the method name do something. So run configurations, argument, program argument, do something. See, here the constructor is created and the method is called. I got hello zero. So this is how you can invoke a method using reflection API. Why am I calling this as reflection API? This method belongs to which package? Reflect package. So we are getting the details about the class itself by using class object, method itself by using method object, etc. So now you understood how to invoke a method. Can I invoke a private method using reflection API? What if I make my method as private? Cannot, is it? Let us check. So I'm trying to invoke on the same thing. Oh, I got an exception saying no such method. A.do something is not existing, it is saying, because it's not visible. So whenever you say get method, it will give you all the visible methods. But if you want all the declared methods, even though it is not visible, get a declared method, you can say. Earlier, what was the exception? It was saying no such method. Now let us see. Oh, now the exception is different. It is saying illegal access. Earlier it said there was no such method at all. But now it is saying there is a method, but you cannot access a member of a class with modifiers private. Oh. So what I want is, I still want to invoke it. What I have to do is method dot set accessible to true. If you say set accessible to true, even though the method is private, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to invoke it. Let me check now. Yes, the method is invoked. So by using this reflection API, you can even invoke a private method. You can even get the value of a private field, set the value of a private field, everything. You can do everything using reflection API. Okay. So now you understood some basics of reflection API. I'm not going into the details of reflection API. It is too complex and it takes a lot of time. So this basics are sufficient for us to go further and understand how to create proxies. So before I go, let me show you a simple requirement. What is my requirement? Then we'll try to create a proxy. Okay, so now the requirement is, I have an interface called as customer DAO in my application. Assume that there's a customer table in my database. I have customer DAO interface. While implementing, I want to implement this such that only for the first time whenever we call a method, it will hit the database and get the results. Then the result should be kept in a cache. Second time or third time whenever we are invoking same method, same arguments, we don't want to hit the database, we want to retrieve the data from the cache. Okay, so that is my requirement. I want to implement caching for all the methods inside this customer DAO. So for me, I'll assume always that cache is nothing but like a map. Whenever I want to put some data in a cache, I'll put it in a map. Key is nothing but the method signature, the method name with arguments, and value is the return value of the argument, return value of the method. So whenever I want to cache the return values of method, I'll put it in a map. The key to the map is nothing but the method name along with parameter values, and the value will be the return value. So I want only single map throughout my application. How is it possible? That is the reason I created a class and I created a static variable of type map. See? So static variable will be loaded only once during the application. So I have implemented this customer DAO IMPL like this. What I'm doing, I'm first getting the key. Key is get all customers. Then I'm checking whether this key is present inside the map or not. For the first time, if I'm calling this method, the key will not be there in the map. Return value will be null. So if return value is null, I am firing the query on the database. The return value, I'm putting it back in the cache with same key, the method name, and returning it. So for the first time, it will call and it will come into this if condition, it will fire a query. Second time onwards, it will just retrieve it from the cache, and this value which I got from the cache only will be returned. Similarly, I have another method called as get customer by ID. Here also I am preparing a key. Key is nothing but my method signature. The method name along with its arguments. I'm checking in the cache. For the first time, the value will not be there in the cache. So I'm hitting the database and putting the value back in the cache. So like that, I have implemented my two methods. But don't you think the logic inside my both of the methods is same? In both of the methods, I'm looking in the cache. If the value is not there in the cache, I'm firing the query and putting it back in the cache. So there is redundant query. How to avoid such redundant code? To avoid redundant code, the idea is like this. See, this is your customer DAO implementation object. If somehow you can create a proxy for your customer DAO implementation, and you write your caching logic inside a separate class. Caching logic can be kept in a separate class. Then what? Whenever you want to call a method on the original object, you'll call a method on the proxy. Then proxy will invoke this logic, which will check in the cache. If the data is not there in the cache, then the call will go to the original object, the original method gets invoked, and the control will come back here. Here the return value will be kept back in the cache, then return the value to proxy, and proxy will return to you. So if somehow you can create a proxy, you can write your caching logic in a separate module, right? Then for all the methods inside your target, inside your customer DAO IMPL, for all the methods, the caching logic is at a single place. So we can avoid redundant code. So let me explain you what do I mean by a proxy. Proxy is an object which behaves as if it is a original object. So if this object, on this object, if there are say 10 methods, on the proxy also there should be same 10 methods. So that means mostly both proxy class and this original class will be implementing same interface. So mostly proxy will be implementing same interface as the target. Okay, so I'll tell you how to create your own proxies. Firstly, if you want to create your own proxies, before you create a proxy, you need to write this logic, because proxy has to invoke a method on this logic, is it? So you need to write this logic. How to write the logic? You have to write that logic inside as class implementing an interface called as invocation handler. Let me show you the same here. This is my caching invocation handler. I am implementing invocation handler present in java.lang.reflect. This is not Spring. This is core JDK itself. Now, I have to write my caching logic inside invoke method. Okay. See here, I created a variable of a type object and I made as target. So somehow to this, let me show you. Somehow to this invocation handler, this is a caching invocation handler, I have to give the reference of the target, right? So that's the reason why I create a variable target, and it's of type object, super type, and through constructor I'll be passing this target reference. Okay, so the caching invocation handler is given a reference of target through constructor. Okay, I'll show you how to construct it later. Now in the invoke method, what am I doing? See, to the invoke method, 3 arguments are passed. First one is the proxy object, the reference to this one. Okay, and second one is a method object. Suppose on the proxy, if I'm calling get all customers, the second argument method object represents is a method object pointing to get all customers. Suppose if I call get customer by ID, the method object which I will be getting here will be for get customer by ID. And the third argument is the parameters passed while calling the method on the proxy. So suppose if I'm calling get all customers, there are no arguments. For other methods, there might be arguments. So all the arguments as passed is an object array. Actually, who will be calling this invoke method? We'll see later. Proxy will be invoking this invoke method. So the logic inside the proxy class should pass the reference of proxy. That means this, the reference of this proxy and the method object for the corresponding method and object array. So the proxy object will be calling this invoke method. Okay, see the logic here. Again, I'm preparing a key. What is the key? Method name. Method.getName will give me the method name. And here I'm iterating through all arguments and I'm concatenating it to the key. Right? Then I'm looking for that key inside the cache. If it is not there, if it is null, then what I'm invoking the method. You already know how to invoke a method using reflection API. Method object dot invoke. On which object? On the target. I have passed the reference of target, right? So a method will be invoked on the target by passing this parameters. Then I got the return value. Return value, I'm keeping it back in the cache. So the original method is invoked here. The original method is invoked only if the data is not there in the cache. That means if return value is null. If return value is not null, it will not hit the method. It will return it from the cache by printing cache hit, returning from the cache. That's it. So this is the logic of invocation handler. So the first step which you have to do is you have to write an implementation of invocation handler like this, and your caching logic is present inside this invoke method. Okay. Then what is the next step? Once I have an invocation handler, I can create a proxy. How? By using a class called as proxy. So let me take it. I'll copy paste here and I'll show you. This is the logic. By using this logic, you are creating a proxy. So this is our original object, which is nothing but the target. And this is your caching invocation handler. See, to the caching invocation handler, I'm passing the target as reference through constructor. Right? So this is a proxy object. Proxy dot new proxy instance will return me this proxy object. Okay. So whenever you are creating a proxy, there are some rules. What are the rules? The rules are the class loader which has loaded the target, same class loader should load the proxy class as well. That is one rule. And the proxy also should implement same interfaces as the target. Is it? So how to get the interface implemented by the target? Let me just show you. See, don't understand about this code. This is a one. I'll just copy paste this part over here. I want to delete this and I'll paste it. Okay. See, how am I getting the interfaces? Target object dot get class will give me the class object dot get interface will give me the interfaces. So to this proxy dot new proxy instance, what is the first argument? Class loader. Because the proxy class should be loaded by same class loader as the target. So I'm passing the class loader of the target like this. Since the proxy should implement all the interface of the target, I'm saying target.getClass.getInterfaces. And then third argument I'm passing. So this method proxy.newProxy instance will create an object of a proxy which is implementing these interfaces and give it. Then I can invoke a method on the proxy. But now I have a simple question. Can I create an object without a class? Without a class definition, can we create an object? Is it possible? No, right? First of all, we define a class, then only we can create an object. Now my question is, where is the class definition for this proxy? I said proxy.newProxy instance will give me the proxy object. But where is the class definition? So whenever I say class, it need not be a dot class file. The class definition can be in memory as well. So this proxy.newProxy instance method, what it is doing, it's creating a class definition in memory. Something like this, something like $proxy12 something. Generally the proxy class names will be like this. Implements what all interfaces. See, second argument is what? target.getClass.get interface is giving the array of all the interfaces. So in this case, if you see the interfaces, it is customer DAO here, because the target is implementing customer DAO. So it implements customer DAO. So let me write it in a separate one. So the proxy class will look like this: $proxy 12 implements customer DAO. So the proxy class has to implement all the methods, right? There are two methods right now. Get all customers and get customer by ID, which is taking ID. So at a high level I wrote. So now this is a class definition. This class definition will be created in memory. Who will create that in memory? This method proxy.newProxy instance is going to create a class definition in memory, and it is going to create an object of that class, and it gives me. So whenever I call a method on the proxy has to call invocation handler dot invoke. Is it? The proxy has to call invocation handler dot invoke. But to this invoke method, we have to pass this all three arguments to be passed. So now the proxy should be having a reference of this invocation handler. See, while creating proxy to the new proxy instance method, the third argument is what? Invocation handler. That means the proxy class has a reference of this handler. Let me show you. So proxy class will be having a reference of handler. The handler will be initialized. Okay, somehow it is initialized. Now here, whenever I call a method called as get all customers, the logic inside this get all customers is just simply having handler dot invoke. What is the first argument for invoke? Proxy. That means this, comma. Second argument is what? Method object. Now the method object will be created here before this, which will be nothing but the method object for get all customers, and the arguments. There are no arguments, so null will be passed in this case. Similarly, for get customer by ID also, the logic is same. Handler dot invoke. The first argument is the proxy this, comma, the method object. Now in this case is the method object for get customer by ID, and the arguments, the ID as an array. So this is a logic which will be present inside the proxy class. Who is generating this proxy class definition? Proxy.newProxy instance method is having a logic to generate a class definition in memory. For this class, an object is created and it is returned to us. So whenever I'm calling any object, any method on this proxy object, this is the code which is getting executed. It is simply calling handler.invoke and returning it. That's all. So whenever we call a method on the proxy, handler.invoke is called. Here we are having a logic which will check in the cache. If the data is not there in the cache, we are hitting the original method. Otherwise, we are returning it from the cache. That's it. So this is how I have implemented my own caching invocation handler. That's fine. Now, what I want to do is, I want some logic to create a proxy. This is an invocation handler, but how to create a proxy? I told I have to write this logic. I have to write this logic, but where should I write? In Spring, if I want an object to be created by calling constructor, it's very easy. You configure a bean tag. Now what I want is, I want an object to be created by executing some logic, not simply by calling a constructor. So you already know in my previous videos I have discussed about something called as factory bin. Is it? Factory bin. So in such cases you can write a class implementing factory bin, or see here what I have done. I have written my own factory bin, caching proxy factory bin. See, I am extending abstract factory bin. This abstract factory bin is implementing factory bin. Now, To this proxy factory bean, there is a dependency target. Okay, and here we are having a method create instance. So here we are calling proxy.prox new proxy instance, target.get class get closer interfaces and all. Here I wrote a logic to create. Okay, now suppose if I configure a bean tag for caching proxy factory bean, will it give me this object? Let me just show you the configuration first. So this is XML. Like I have created a data source bean and JDBC template is created, and see here, this is the customer.dow IMPL bean. I'll give the ID customer.dow. Now see what is present here. Customer.dow IMPL I'll give here. Okay, now see what I'm doing. This is the data source. This JDBC template is injected to data source, and this is my original target customer.dow IMPL. Okay, and then I'm configuring a bean of type caching proxy factory bean. It's having a dependency on target. Oh, I didn't give setter method. I'll have to give setter method because I'm doing setter injection there in the XML. So setter method I'll give. So this caching proxy factory bean is dependent on target. I am injecting it. Now my question is, if I say context.getBean customer.dow, will I get an object of this class? No, right? Spring will recognize that this is a special class factory bean. What it will do, it will create an object of this class, inject the dependency. Then after all dependencies are injected, it will call create instance method. Whatever is returned by this create instance method will be the bean. So what is returned by this method? It is returning a proxy. So once I say application context.get bean customer.dow, I'll get a proxy for this target. Right? Let me check whether I'll be getting a proxy really or not. Here is a test case. So what am I doing? I am configuring using caching.xml, and here I have injected a bean customer.dow by name resource annotation, and then in the test method I'm calling get all customers thrice. I kept a breakpoint. Let me debug. Okay, it's debugging. Yep, it started. Now it came to debug perspective. Yep. When it is here, see customer.dow, is it a proxy or not? See, customer.dow is pointing to a proxy object. It is not a original object. So I got a reference of the proxy. I'm calling a method on the proxy 3 times. Okay, let me resume. On the console I have to observe. First time it is printing cache miss. Second time it is returning from the cache. Is it? Only for the first time it has hit, and from second time it is returning it from the cache. So you understood how to create your own proxy, and also you got a very practical example on when to use factory beans. I have created my own factory bean. Okay, and you observed how to achieve caching. Okay, so just go through this video once again and understand the logic. We'll see in next video we'll see how to create proxies using AOP.